There was a time actually in grad school where I didn't know that I wanted to become a physicist. I was just like, what am I doing with I'm wasting my time here. I'm going to be sitting behind a desk doing this stuff. Maybe I should get out into the world and actually help humanity in some way. And then actually the day I decided I was going to leave, I was packing my books up. I noticed on the desk of we all, first year, second year grad school, I was sharing an office with a bunch of other graduate students. I noticed on that desk a book called Quantum Field Theory. And I said, quantum field theory, open a book, and it starts off, quantum field theory is analogous to, it's a picture of matter, okay, like a gigantic orchestra, that the vibration of the field, this particular field, okay, gives rise to the different forms of matter and the interactions. The Standard Model is an example of a quantum field theory, actually. So it's the underlying paradigm of matter and energy vibrating in this gigantic orchestra, and the appearance of matter or substance and all these things are just really this orchestra, this field vibrating. And immediately I said to myself, wow, like, you mean physics is no different in this way than music? Meaning that, really good music, if I have an orchestra or a band, there are things going on individually between the players. With the player playing the music. But then there's this overall effect of the whole and the harmony that's generated with the whole. And so that view of physics actually made me realize, and it only took me that, I should continue on because I need to learn quantum field theory. So I stayed on and learned quantum field theory. But as I continued on, this whole thing with music came back again. Because in hindsight, which is like 18 years later, since starting graduate school, I believe 18 years later, 17 years later, I have come to realize, actually, if I will dare to say, music is sort of like the physics of emotions. It's basically the science of music, if you want to think of it. Music as an art form, but it's also a science of emotions. A great musician is able to play with emotions, evoke certain emotions. Maybe they might want to, there's a range in which that can be controlled, but the point is music has evoked emotions for us, different types of emotions, feelings and emotions. Now, physics, when we think about physics, we think about this mechanistic thing, right? Matter, and who cares about matter? What does it have to do with the feeling, the emotion that, say, music has to do with? But you see, when we go into the fundamental questions about that physics is really asking, questions of how is matter really created, for example? How is this thing created? And we look back at the correlation it has with music, we can't help to think, to wonder about the mystery, okay, behind psychology, for example. How interesting would it be that actually the source, of the, if you may allow me to speculate now, if you allow me to speculate, but I'm going to do it anyway, that the mystery as to why we like music or why there's something universal about music and harmony across cultures, and why matter is manifested and energy is manifested in our universe in this harmonious picture, as physicists describe, might have a similar root. And in a sense, some of the mysteries in psychology having to do with, thought and thinking and consciousness. We know music, or this wave-like property, definitely has something to do with that. But we also know that physics has to do with this wave-like property of the field, for example, or string theory, or quantum gravity. Pick your theory of the day. But there's still a mystery there. And I think that science, is also about that human quest to sort of like, in some ways also, I also turned to science as a way of providing answers to a world around me that had a lot of suffering. Growing up in the Bronx, there was a lot of bad stuff going on that I saw around me, and I just really wasn't willing to just accept, other people's take on it. that it had to do with some bad guy out there that I can't see and some good guy out there with a beard that I can't see running the show. I wanted to, sort of see for myself, and that's kind of where I've been ultimately led to. But I don't have answers to that. It's just another question that I dare ask, which is, is there a fundamental relation between fundamental physics, cosmology, particle physics, the creation of substance, and psychology? One of the things that fascinated me the most about quantum mechanics is that there is a view in which quantum mechanics is very much, when you look at the heart of quantum mechanics, has this probabilistic feel to it. So I'll give you an example. The electron moving around the hydrogen atom. You see these nice pictures of these electron clouds, right? The orbitals of the electron. And even when you take chemistry, you'll see these orbitals. Well, what you find is that those things, or that those pictures, are solutions of a wave equation of the electron. But what is it? What kind of wave is this electron represented? It's a probability wave. So it's a wave of probability. So that wave is not that the electron, the interpretation there for quantum mechanics is matter is not, it's still in a sense point-like this electron, but there's a wave of probability. And that's the thing I can, that is, if you want to say, the most fundamental description of quantum mechanics. There's a probability wave, that everything exists in this wave of probability. And that's what's interesting about music, because music is all about, waves, basically. I mean, at least at its core, resonance, waves, harmony, all these, and time, right? How those things play itself out in time. But if you look at quantum mechanics now, there's this probability thing. So you can ask yourself, well, what is the thing that comes closest to probability in music? And it's improvisation. Because an improviser, I could totally, as an improviser, which is something that I enjoy doing very much as a hobby, I'll get my sax out and I'll just improvise something. Now, depending on who's listening, they might perceive that as complete randomness. Someone else may perceive that thing as, that's sensical. Like, this thing makes a lot of sense to me. I get it. Who's correct? So there's a relativity there in that sense of that improvisation was more fundamental than, the perception of something random or something that made sense. So if you now take that to the domain of quantum mechanics, you can say, well, maybe nature is improvising, and maybe we think the best we could ever do is make probabilistic statements, but nature's smarter than us. And maybe, this wave-like property of the probability of matter existing in quantum mechanics, that interpretation, it might be cooler to think of it as an improvisation. So that's, one way in which I like to link in improvisation, especially if the universe, nature was really cool and funky, then the universe would be a really good jazz improviser.